The anime starts with a city, once bustling, now falling apart. A terrible sickness has swept across the world, bringing widespread panic and ruin. Through this disaster, a mysterious young woman with vibrant pink hair leads a small group forward. We then see a group of young children, alone and scared, wandering through the city streets. They watch helplessly as adults around them die. A voice explains that a deadly virus has spread through humanity, but it spares anyone under the age of 13. Among the children, Mika, a brave boy, tells Yuichiro to look after the others because their orphanage director is gone. The voice continues, revealing that a powerful vampire, the third progenitor Krultepes, will now care for all the children in their area. Soon after, some strangers trap the children in a room and load them onto trucks. The story jumps ahead 4 years. Now, in a grand castle belonging to Krultepes, all the children are being signed in. Mika and Yuichiro, older now, are among them. They watch as vampires take blood from all the kids, leaving them frail. Afterward, food is offered, but Yuichiro refuses to eat, disgusted by this treatment. Mika tells him he might get sick if he doesn't eat, and explains that this place, though a prison, keeps them safe and together as a family. Yuichiro disagrees, hating to be treated like cattle. When 2 guards rudely step over some smaller children, Yuichiro's anger boils over. He tries to make them apologize, but they almost kill him until a high-ranking vampire, Lord Farid, steps in. Farid, who seems friendly with Mika, asks what's happening. Mika quickly explains that one of his family members is causing problems, yet he accepts Farid's invitation to his home. Farid then asks if Yuichiro will join them, which further provokes Yuichiro. He tries to insult the vampire, but Mika stops him. Yuichiro turns his anger on Mika, but Mika calmly explains that a human cannot physically overpower a vampire. Yuichiro then asks if Mika knows Farid well. Mika confirms this, saying he gains good food and other things by offering his blood to Farid. Mika tells Yuichiro to be smart to survive here, yet Yuichiro walks up, punches Mika, and leaves without a word. Later, Yuichiro is resting when Akane comes over, asking how he feels. She gently reminds him that despite his protests, he belongs to their family, all the children from the orphanage. This makes Yuichiro think back to his first day there, when Mika offered him a comforting hand. That evening, back at their home, his younger siblings greet him happily, saying they missed him and announcing curry for dinner. Yuichiro is amazed by what Akane is cooking, asking how she managed it. Akane explains it's all thanks to Mika, which makes Yuichiro angry, thinking about what Mika had to do. At dinner, Yuichiro refuses to try the curry while his siblings playfully argue about whose birthday it is. Akane settles it by declaring it everyone's birthday. The children then ask Yuichiro where Mika is, and he doesn't know what to say. Much later that night, Mika returns, finding everyone asleep except Yuichiro, who waited up for him. Yuichiro tells Mika that next time, it will be his turn to give blood for food. Mika playfully teases him about his blood's taste, then tells Yuichiro not to worry and to get ready to fight the vampires. Yuichiro asks Mika to stop shouldering all the burdens alone. Mika dismisses this as foolish talk, saying Yuichiro should just hold on to Mika's words, like the other kids who look up to him. After this, they share some curry. Mika then gives Yuichiro a weapon to use against the vampires and shows him a city map he secretly took from Farid's house. Mika proposes they all escape the city tonight, their entire family, as he has planned everything. Yuichiro worries about the virus, but Mika assures him it won't harm them since they are only 12. Mika then tells Akane to wake everyone up so they can begin their escape. Quietly, following Mika's every instruction, they begin their escape, moving through the sleeping city. Down in the sewers, the children ask Mika where they're going. He promises they'll return to their own world, where they can enjoy curry daily. A guard almost spots them, but they hide just in time. Nearing the exit, Farid suddenly appears. He claims he's been waiting, enjoying their desperation, and reveals he was merely toying with them all along. He grabs one of the young girls, taking all her blood until she dies. Yuichiro, filled with fury, shoots at Farid, but the vampire swiftly avoids it. Farid then confirms the map is real and they are indeed near the outside. Seeing this, Yuichiro tries to create a path for the other children to escape, but he fails. This allows Farid to kill all the remaining children, while Mika screams in agony for him to stop. After Akane falls, Mika grabs the weapon and attacks Farid directly. Farid, thanking Mika for his precious blood, then brutally kills him. Yet Mika's bravery isn't wasted, as Yuichiro seizes the moment to shoot Farid in the head. Mika, dying, tells Yuichiro to run, but Yuichiro, weeping over his lost family, refuses to leave alone. Mika insists, ordering him to flee. As more guards approach, Yuichiro finally escapes, finding himself in a bleak outside world. There, some adults whisper that a prophecy has come true. One of the Hyakuya lab subjects, who supposedly destroyed Japan, has appeared. A man tells Yuichiro they will use him to destroy the vampires, and Yuichiro, still crying, hugs him and promises to do it. 4 years pass, and Yuichiro is now a young man. He remains haunted by Mika's death from all those years ago. Suddenly, a monstrous 4 horseman creature appears, attacking. Yuichiro's fellow soldiers try to fight it, wondering why a new recruit is even there and telling him to get away. But Yuichiro refuses, driven only by his desire for revenge against the vampires. Disregarding all orders, he charges the beast, swiftly defeating it by cutting it in half with his sword. Next, Yuichiro sits in school, grumbling about getting punished despite defeating the monster. His teacher scolds him for muttering and interrupting, threatening suspension if he keeps being unruly. Yuichiro isn't scared. Surprisingly, the teacher's words actually make him happy, baffling everyone. Just then, a girl taps his back. Yuichiro turns to ask who she is. She writes in a notebook that her name is Shino Hiragi, and she's there to supervise him for the army. If he doesn't cooperate and attend classes, she'll report it, leading to a longer suspension. Yuichiro grows angry, which further annoys the teacher, who feels ignored. Shino calmly highlights the need to cooperate, so Yuichiro reluctantly agrees to follow the teacher's rules. Shino also adds that his punishment won't end until he makes at least one friend. The story then shifts to Yuichiro's memory. He once believed all humans were gone, but Girin Ichinose tells him those are vampire lies, though much of humanity did vanish. Girin explains that when the end-time trumpets blew, strange creatures appeared globally. Yet, he declares, humanity is now beginning to rise again. Girin, a colonel in the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, tells Yuichiro their group will dominate and guide humanity. He promises Yuichiro can get his revenge on all vampires if he joins them, offering him a coat. Back in the present, Yuichiro feels angry with Girin for not helping him all these years. Shinora then teases Yuichiro about his reluctance to make new friends. She shows a touch of sadness, wondering why he can't have friends or even a girlfriend after all he's been through with his family as a child. Yuichiro, enraged, stands up and tells her to inform Girin that he's strong enough to join the vampire extermination unit now. Shinora calmly responds that Girin already expected this and sent a letter. Yuichiro, excited, opens it, only to find Girin scolding him, saying he must first make a friend and introduce them. Yuichiro, fuming, stomps out of the classroom, yelling about being fed up with Girin. Shinora follows closely, explaining she must supervise him, whether he likes it or not. They soon notice some bullies bothering another boy. Yuichiro first decides to ignore it, but then changes his mind, going back to confront them for treating the boy like livestock. The bullies mock him, claiming he'll end up just like Yuichi. Yuichiro, mocking them in return, asks if they want to fight. Shinora warns him that hurting civilians will extend his punishment, leading to Yuichiro getting hit and mistreated by the bullies. As they go to fulfill the bullies' demands, Yuichi keeps apologizing to Yuichiro. Yuichiro grows tired of Yuichi's meekness and scolds him for letting other students push him around. Yuichi defends himself, saying it's not true, and explains he wanted to ask Yamanaka a favor to join his group. Yuichiro asks who Yamanaka is. Yuichi replies that Yamanaka is the one who just beat them up. He needs the favor because he failed the Japanese Imperial Demon Army entrance exam, while Yamanaka was offered a spot in the respected Moon Demon Company. He wanted Yamanaka to speak for him, so he could try the exam again. Yuichiro is shocked, since even he couldn't get into that company, making him even more frustrated with Girin. Yuichi admits it's odd for someone like him to want to join the army, but he's doing it to avenge his sister. Yuichiro scolds him, saying he would be dead if he had tried to save her, so he did the right thing. He then advises Yuichi not to join the army, as his current mindset won't help him kill vampires, which saddens Yuichi. Suddenly, a huge explosion rocks the area, and an alarm blares, announcing a vampire has escaped from a nearby lab. Shino tells Yuichiro and Yuichi to find cover while she contacts the Moon Demon Company, but Yuichiro declares that's not needed, as he will defeat the vampire himself. All the other students flee, but Yuichiro grabs his weapons, ready to fight. Yamanaka watches as Yuichiro engages the vampire, managing to cut off her arm. Yuichiro tells Yamanaka to run. Yamanaka admits he can't, confessing he never actually joined the army, and only pretended to scare people. The vampire strikes back with her now healed arm, giving Yuichiro a tough fight. Just as she is about to unleash her full power, Yoichi bravely jumps in, tackling her. Yuichiro thanks him and resumes the battle, but a moment's distraction allows the vampire to throw him out a window, though his sword pierces her. The vampire scoffs at such a small injury, but then Girin appears, defeating her easily. Girin teases Yuichiro for trying to fight a vampire without a special weapon, but still thanks him for his effort. Yuichiro insists he's proven himself, and wants to join the company. Girin refuses, saying Yuichiro doesn't understand teamwork and has no friends. Right then, Yoichi appears and hugs Yuichiro, thanking him for his help, though he faints immediately afterward. This gesture, however, clearly shows he is Yuichiro's friend, leading Shinoa to remind Girin of his promise. While Yuichiro is unconscious, he dreams of Mika, who tells him to let go of revenge and protect his new friend. Yuichiro finally wakes up in the infirmary, surrounded by his happy new friends. Shinoa tells him that because of his courage, he and Yoichi are now part of the vampire extermination unit. The next day, Yamanaka and his friends are in a hidden room, a place that could cause serious trouble if the army found it. Yamanaka and another friend leave, but Yuchi stays as a mysterious door opens. Later, a shy classmate gives Yuichiro a thank you note, confessing her feelings for him. Yuichiro is surprised, and before he can respond, the girl quickly runs off. Shinoa, watching from a distance, approaches and teases Yuichiro about being a ladies' man, yet points out he is still a virgin. Shinoa explains this isn't good because the army encourages romantic relationships to rebuild the human population and reclaim power against the vampires. They need many children. Yuichiro shows no interest, instead asking Shinoa why he must still attend regular school when he's earned a spot in the vampire extermination unit. Shinoa tells him he can take those complaints directly to the lieutenant colonel. Yuichiro gets angry, complaining Girin is never in his office so he cannot do that. Shinoa calms him, saying yelling at her won't help, and explains his training has already started. She then shows him the demon she has made a pact with, named Shikama Doji. She also reveals her demon weapon, which she uses to fight vampires, leaving Yuichiro completely amazed. Seeing it, Yuichiro believes he could defeat vampires with a weapon like that. Shinoa clarifies that even with such a weapon, he wouldn't win without help, so he needs to learn teamwork. Yuichiro cuts her off, challenging her to a duel for her sword so he can avenge his family. Shinoa replies he cannot use a demon weapon tied to someone else. Yuichiro then tells her to show him what she can do, starting a fairly even fight. Shinoa points out it's foolish to fight her demon weapon with a regular sword, launching special attacks with her weapon and easily defeating him. Instead of getting angry, Yuichiro is fascinated by what he saw. Afterward, walking through the school hallways, Yuichiro comments that killing vampires must be easy with a weapon like hers. Shinoa responds it's not, since vampires are also armed on the battlefield, which is why Girin emphasizes teamwork so much. Suddenly, Yoichi interrupts, asking for help because Yamanaka and his friend are chasing him. Both bullies apologize for what they did and ask to become Yuichiro's subordinates. They tell Yuichiro they want to serve under Yoichi because they need his assistance. Yuichiro complains that these bullies have no shame, only seeking friendship with Yoichi when they need something. Yamanaka apologizes, explaining that Yuichi entered a forbidden room and hasn't returned. Shinoa overhears this and questions why they entered a restricted military area, level 1, adding that they don't need excuses because it's severely punishable. She also suggests Yuichi was probably captured or executed by the army, so they should forget about him. Later, Yuichiro asks Shinoa about that forbidden place. She replies it's one of the school's 7 mysteries. Yuichiro laughs, saying that's nonsense, claiming it's just another restricted military zone. Shinoa explains to Yuichiro and Yoichi that this is where extermination unit members train, and only authorized personnel can enter because of the risk of demon possession. Yuichiro is surprised, but Shinoa tells him he needs to accompany her for his next training step. They head to the underground sanctuary, a system of tunnels originally built for flood control, now used for training. Like the rest of the school, this place selects people unaffected by a demon's dark power. Shinoa finally admits the entire school is actually a large-scale human experimentation lab. They then reach the door where Yuichi disappeared. Shinoa explains that only chosen extermination unit members, or those picked by a demon, can pass through. Yuichi wasn't chosen, which means his heart must have been consumed, turning him into a human-eating demon. Shinoa prepares to show them the power of her demon weapon. However, Yuichiro rushes ahead, determined to defeat the demon and gain more power for his revenge. Yuichiro enters the forbidden room, finding many weapons left by the fallen, and in the center, Yuichi, now possessed. Shinoa orders him not to interfere, as the extermination unit will handle it, but Yuichiro is interested in making a pact with the axe demon Yuichi wields, so he jumps into battle, prompting Shinoa to send Yuichi for reinforcements. Yuichiro begins his fight, but Shinoa stops him, warning that touching the axe will possess him. She also tells him his heart, filled with vengeance, isn't ready to defeat it, since demons feed on negative emotions and use them against their hosts. This is why Girin hasn't given him a demon weapon yet. Yuichiro, however, doesn't care, vowing to prove them wrong and defeat it even without a special weapon. Yuichiro attacks the demon. When he manages to grab its weapon, he is pulled into an illusion, seeing himself as a child with his entire family inviting him to dinner. Yuichiro feels strange but is shocked when Mika asks about his wish to become strong and defeat vampires. Before eating, Yuichiro asks if his family is still alive, and Mika says no. Meanwhile, everyone blames him for abandoning them when the vampire killed them. The demon, using Mika's image, tells him it will grant him power for revenge if he opens his heart. The demon believes Yuichiro is giving in. Yet Yuichiro realizes this cannot be real because Mika would never ask him to seek revenge, breaking the illusion and threatening the demon. Yuichiro furiously asks, how dare it pretend to be his family, forcing the demon to reveal its true form. Yuichiro then wakes up, unsure what just happened. Shinoa explains he was under a demon's illusion but managed to overcome it with his own will. Yuichiro asks if he finally has his weapon, but Shinoa replies not yet. Girin will be the one to assign it. Yuichiro laughs, saying Girin now must acknowledge his strength since he defeated a demon. Shinoa confirms he must now attend the extermination unit training school. Hearing this, Yuichiro becomes very excited, proudly accepting the challenge to learn how to kill vampires. Meanwhile, Farid is alive and talking with Mika, who also survived and has become a vampire. Farid reports they have found Yuichiro and humans are using him. One night, a four-horseman monster suddenly appears, causing chaos and fear among the people. Mika, however, steps forward with his demon sword and easily defeats it with a single strike. The people are shocked and happy to have a protector, but Mika's vampire comrades mock them, knowing they are simply gathering more livestock. During their talk, they question Mika for becoming a vampire by drinking the blood of the third progenitor, Cruel Tepes. One vampire expresses disdain for Mika, calling him as miserable and greedy as humans. Mika replies they can do as they wish, since he isn't seeking glory. After this, the vampires announce to the district that it is now under their control and protection. Mika saves a young girl who later offers him her blood as thanks. This triggers a memory of Mika before he became a vampire, when he spoke to Yuichiro about his escape plan and what happened after he escaped. After his escape, guards arrived, and Cruel Tepes appeared, claiming Mika as her own and asking Farid what occurred. Farid praises Cruel's appearance, but she dismisses him, believing he only cares about political power. The queen questions Farid for allowing the seraphs to escape and leaving one almost dead. Farid denies everything and threatens to speak to the council about his research into the seraph curse, enraging Cruel, who attacks him and easily defeats him. Farid apologizes, surrenders, and promises not to interfere with her affairs again. Later, Cruel approaches Mika, asking if he wants eternal life. Though Mika refuses, Cruel forces him to drink her blood with a kiss, causing him to lose his humanity. In another scene, Yuichiro runs into a boy looking for a fight and they brawl. Yuichiro ends up badly beaten and tries to avoid the topic when Yuichi asks about it. When Shinoa sees him, she teases him about being suspended again. Yuichiro claims it wasn't a fight, just that he bumped into a street lamp. Shinoa accepts his story for now, asking if the boys are excited to start training. Yuichiro, as usual, complains and asks when they can go into battle. Shinoa tells him if he wants to skip training, he can, but he'll have to fight without weapons or a uniform. Afterward, Shinoa takes them to their new class where they find Guren half asleep. The lieutenant colonel introduces them as transfer students and makes them introduce themselves. Yuichiro begins by stating he's not there for friends and has no intention of getting along with anyone, ending by saying everyone is wasting their time because he will have the most powerful weapon. Guren scolds him and sends him to his seat. He finds his seat taken by the boy he fought earlier. Guren is confused about Kimizuki being there, as he was assigned to the regular school under Shinoa's supervision. When asked for results, Shinoa simply points out the evidence right in front of him. Meanwhile, Yuichiro and Shinoa start fighting to see who is stronger, forcing Guren to end it by punching them both unconscious. Later, Shinya barges into Guren's office without permission, asking to face a high-ranking demon during the weapon trials, claiming he has the best grades. Guren asks why he seeks so much power. Shinya replies the army already knows everything about him, so he doesn't understand the question. Guren reveals he knows Shinya needs money for his sister's virus treatment, as she is still a child, and joining the company would grant him access to it. However, Guren refuses to give him a demon weapon now, saying his desires would only be twisted and used against him. Shinya then mocks what would happen with Yuichiro, but Guren reveals Yuichiro has already managed to handle a demon once, which surprises Shinya, though he insists he's still stronger than Yuichiro. Guren replies that strength alone is not enough. Without friends, nothing can be achieved. The students are then told they must pass a preliminary exam before the demon weapon aptitude test. The first test is in pairs. Shinya teams up with Yuichi, while Yuichiro is forced to partner with Shinya. They are first attacked by enchanted puppets, but due to their lack of teamwork, they fail the test and lose points. Afterward, the instructor receives urgent news for Shinya. Training is stopped and he learns his sister is in critical condition in the infirmary. Despite this, Shinya decides to continue training, but Yuichiro advises him to be with his sister and not abandon her. Yuichiro then punches Shinya to make him realize what he's doing, as Shinya only wanted to keep training. At the hospital, Shinya promises to join the company and then move his sister to the military hospital. Both boys have a heartfelt talk that night, encouraging each other and promising not to give up. Finally, there is a meeting of the progenitors. Worried about a new threat, Cruel proposes destroying the Japanese Imperial Demon Army to eliminate the danger and start a war. Next, we see a meeting where Shinya Hiragi, the Major General of the Imperial Demon Army, presents his report on the district and the vampire activity in the Konkai area. During the meeting, Guren, who had been sleeping, wakes up and asks if the boring meeting is over. General Tenri Hiragi warns him to watch his words. Guren, however, decides to leave the meeting, asking for a summary later. He believes he shouldn't be there anyway since the Hiragi family controls the army, and as an Ichinose he sees no reason to stay. He then leaves. On his way out, he complains about the tedious meeting, but suddenly Yuichiro appears and attacks him. Yet Guren easily pushes him back. He mocks Yuichiro, saying he's as predictable as ever and wants to have some fun fighting him. Yuichiro, furious, asks why Guren disappeared for 10 days without giving him his demon sword. Gurren decides to give him a quick answer to avoid drawing the Hiragi family's attention. He proposes signing a contract with a demon to send him to the battlefield, but also warns that if Yuichiro dies, Gurren takes no responsibility. Yuichiro cannot believe what he's hearing, but he accepts excitedly. Before leaving, Gurren hits him on the head, warning him not to try kicking him in the face again. Later, Yuichiro meets Shinoa, who asks about his head and if he skipped class to fight. He denies it, but she already knows the truth, saying Gurren doesn't know how to control his strength. Still, she congratulates him, because he finally got permission to make a contract with a demon. That night, Mika is with Farid, who suggests the time might have come to see Yuichiro again. Mika ignores him and walks away. He roams the city, heading to his old home, only to discover it's now inhabited by other children who are terrified at the sight of him, forcing Mika to leave. The next day at the academy, the results of the written exams, determining each person's demon weapon rank, are handed out. Yuichiro tries to hide his grade, but Shinoa snatches it from his hands to tease him. She tells the group that Yuichiro achieved a legendary score only geniuses get, a 0. This shocks everyone, but he gets angry with Shinoa, who says she only did it to help him become popular. However, Yuichiro repeats he doesn't need friends or companions to achieve his goal. She teases him, saying he sounds like a 3-year-old. Then Yuichi steps in, saying maybe Japanese just isn't his thing. Afterwards, Shinoa mocks Yuichiro, but Yuichiro challenges him back, asking to see his grades. Shinoa shows he got a perfect score and even wrote in 3 different languages. This leads to a fight, but Yuichi and instructor Shiguri try to break it up. Gurren arrives and calls out Yuichiro, who questions him about his promise to give him a demon weapon. Shinoa interrupts by punching Yuichiro, then asks the lieutenant colonel to explain why he was gone for so many days. Gurren mocks the young ones for thinking they're ready for demon weapons, but the boys start arguing and hitting each other again. Meanwhile, Gurren asks Shiguri her opinion on whether they're ready to resist the demon's temptation. She's not entirely sure, but says both are stronger than she was at their age, and that Yuichi surprisingly has the highest resistance to demons. Gurren then attacks them to see if they're truly ready, stating that if anyone dies, it's their fault for not training enough. Many are affected by Gurren's attack, including Shina, but Yuichiro and Yuichi feel nothing. Gurren congratulates them for staying conscious since it means they have the potential to make a contract with a demon if they keep training. He praises those still standing even more, as they now have the chance to face a demon and obtain a demon weapon of the same rank as his, the Black Demon series. The lucky ones are Yuichiro, Shina, Yuichi, and Shina, though Gurren says he would have preferred if Shina had passed out. As they head out to face the demons, Shiguri tells Gurren that perhaps it's not a good idea for Yuichi to participate. He replies not to worry, for if Yuichi isn't strong enough he will die because the world is cruel. He then asks Yuichi if he is willing to risk his life to avenge his sister, and if not, he should leave. The others advise Yuichi to back out, but he refuses, choosing to stay and protect the ones he loves. While descending in an elevator, everyone tries to calm Yuichi since there's no turning back. However, Shino questions Shinya if he's sure about this, as earlier he could barely stand holding onto the table. Gurren then scolds Yuichiro for being too confident, warning him this demon is nothing like the one he faced before. Finally, they arrive at the place where the weapons housing the most powerful demons are kept. Yuichiro asks what they need to do, and Gurren tells them to choose whichever weapon they like most and step into the ritual circle. As soon as they touch the weapon, the ritual will begin. If they defeat the demon, its power will be theirs. But if they lose, they will either turn into demons or die. Either way, they die. The first to start is Yuichiro, who steps forward with determination, demanding the demon give him its power. We now enter Yuichi's memory, where he remembers the vampire who killed his sister is named Lacus. He sees his dead sister and tries to touch her, but a demon takes her form, telling him he's just reliving memories. Young Yuichi asks his sister if she's alive, but the demon answers that she is not. Next, it's Shinya's turn, and he is talking with his sister. The demon tries to break him emotionally, telling him he's just a selfish human who only thinks of himself. Shinya realizes it's the demon, which responds it's not just a simple hallucination but his own hidden memories from deep in his heart. Meanwhile, Gurren watches the youths, thinking at least one of them will succeed after seeing Shinya. We then move to Yuichiro's illusion, where he meets Mika again. Yuichiro tells the demon to stop wasting time imitating his family. The demon is surprised because Yuichiro doesn't seem to care about his family. However, Yuichiro replies he knows demon mind games and demands its power. The demon appears and attacks him, managing to trap him with its ability. It questions whether he thinks defeating a low-level demon means he can handle a demon like her, threatening to play with his heart at will. Yet Yuichiro doesn't care and keeps demanding its power. The demon asks why he wants that power. He replies he wants it to avenge his family, and the demon agrees to grant him infinite power, but warns it won't be enough. Taking Akane's form, it tells him he must dedicate his life to vengeance, and tries to make him feel guilty for abandoning his family. It also tells him to reject love and never replace his old family with new friends, forgetting them entirely. Yuichiro yells at the demon to be quiet, When it doesn't, he furiously demands its power to protect those he cares about. Finally, the demon accepts him, but only as long as his heart remains strong. If he ever hesitates, the demon will take control of his body, then introduces itself as Asuramaru. Before leaving, it reveals Yuichiro isn't completely human, at least a tenth of him is not. Though Yuichiro doesn't understand what that means, Asuramaru reveals her true form and seals the deal. After waking up, Yuichiro is teased by Shinya for taking so long. Yuichiro asks about Yoichi, but they tell him he hasn't woken up yet. Meanwhile, in Yoichi's illusion, he continues talking with the demon, who asks if he wants its power, since it found no desire for revenge in his heart, only good feelings and thoughts it despises in humans. The demon demands Yoichi give it his body so it can avenge his sister, because he himself lacks the will to do so, then attacks him. Seeing a terrified Yoichi, the demon declares him unfit to be its master, taking control of his body and awakening. Guren is upset by the situation, but is at least glad they achieved 2 victories out of 3. He then assigns the youths their first mission as official squad members. They must defeat the possessed demon. The possessed demon attacks Guren first, but fails. It then tries to attack Yuichiro and Shinya, but also cannot harm them. Yuichiro asks Guren what they should do since he doesn't want to kill their friend. However, Guren tells him to end his suffering, for he is no longer their friend, only a demon. Yuichiro refuses again, but Guren orders him to follow commands, saying if they want to die, he won't stop them. He tells them if they have any pride as soldiers, they must kill the demon. The boys decide to fight the demon and manage to disarm it, so they lower their guard. Before Guren can warn them, the demon attacks Yuichiro, but Shinya seizes the opportunity to strike it down, though he stops short of killing Yoichi. The demon mocks them for not being able to kill, while they keep trying to get Yoichi to fight back against it. Shinya urges Guren to intervene since the boys aren't prepared to kill their friend. Guren realizes Shinya has feelings for all of them and orders her to step in to spare them the guilt, but she cannot do it. Yuichiro keeps trying to get Yoichi to fight, but it's useless. Before the demon can strike, Yuichiro gives up and tells it to kill him instead because he won't kill a friend. But before it can attack, Guren scolds Yoichi to protect his family and stop hiding. This finally awakens Yoichi after an inner struggle. The first thing he does is run to hug Yuichiro. Suddenly, Guren kicks Yuichiro hard for taking so long, sending him to the ground. Shinya questions if Guren knew this would happen and teases him, saying he cares about the kids too. Guren tells Yoichi he has talent and encourages him to pursue his will to protect his friends, forgetting about meaningless revenge. Yuichiro must do the same, forgetting his old family, and now risking his life for his new family, because there's nothing in the past for him anymore. Finally, Guren informs them they'll be deployed to the battlefield in Kansai, as vampires plan to conquer Shinjuku. We then see a plane full of vampires, including Mika, heading towards Shinjuku City. At night, Yuichiro sleeps, but he is tormented by a dream in which Mika blames him for abandoning him. He wakes up, excited for the day he has long awaited. It is finally time to kill vampires. Next, he rides the subway with Shinya, who will accompany him that day. During the ride, she gives him the day's orders, but all he cares about is beginning his revenge. Shinya tries to explain they first need to strengthen defenses, but he complains about having to do that first in Shinjuku. The youths arrive at a guarded gate leading outside the city walls. Upon arrival, the guards are surprised to see children as part of the special unit. As they cross the gate, they hear someone complaining to Guren about not wanting to be assigned a group of rookies. They decide to see who it is, but along the way they encounter Yoichi and Shinya, who have been there since early morning. They then overhear the true reason for the girl's complaint to Guren. She wanted to be the leader because of her experience, but that role will belong to Shinya Hiragi. When Shinya sees the girl, she greets her as Mitsuba, who is visibly angry. Mitsuba charges at Shinya to start a fight, but Guren interrupts them, threatening to send them to the dungeon if they continue. Guren then tells the group he will take another route to Shinjuku. Before leaving, he introduces their new teammate, Mitsuba Sangu. He explains that company squads must have 5 members, otherwise they would be in danger against an armed vampire. He also orders them to act as a team when facing a threat, though Yuichiro doesn't seem to understand that. For that reason, Mitsuba punches him, but he blocks it. Guren then assigns them their mission. They must go to Harajuku to free the humans in the settlement used by vampires as livestock. After that, they can proceed to Shinjuku. On their way to Harajuku, Yoichiro is shocked at how destroyed the world is. He asks if they once guarded those walls by defeating the horsemen of the apocalypse. Mitsuba interjects, saying the horsemen are stronger now because they are farther from the wall. Finally, they arrive in Harajuku, and the first thing they see is a girl running from a horseman of the apocalypse. Yoichiro tries to save her, but Mitsuba stops him, ordering him not to break formation as it could be a trap. Yuichiro gets angry, suggesting they retreat then because he will save her alone. He runs to save the girl, and Mitsuba runs after him. The rest of the team tries to help, but Shina stops them, sensing approaching vampires, and says they used the girl as bait. Yuichiro saves the girl just in time, and Mitsuba finishes off the horsemen of the apocalypse, which causes the vampires to reveal themselves and attack. Yuichiro faces 3 vampires, and when they manage to injure him a bit, feeling cornered, he asks to borrow Asuramaru's power. This surprises the vampires. Mitsuba then warns him that another attack is coming from a horseman of the apocalypse that hadn't died. Shina protects him, then Yuichi protects Shina, and finally Mitsuba kills the creature. We see the vampires deciding to retreat and call for reinforcements because these kids are part of the vampire extermination force, but Yuichiro surprises them with an attack. Still, Mitsuba orders the team to withdraw. Before they can leave, the vampires mockingly say they won't let their livestock go. This enrages Yuichiro, who is about to attack, but Shina orders them to retreat because they are in enemy territory. That night, Mitsuba punches and scolds Yuichiro for endangering the entire team with his reckless actions. Yuichiro admits his mistake but says he has no regrets. If it makes her feel better, she can hit him as much as she wants. She tells him she hates people like him because they lead their teams to ruin. Afterward, they hand the girl over to the army so she will be safe. Finally, Shina tells Yuichiro that Mitsuba is like that, but he should treat her kindly because she has a painful past. Then we see the girls bathing, with Mitsuba complaining about Yuichiro while Shina teases her, saying they will end up falling for each other. Shina also asks if Mitsuba hates Yuichiro because he reminds her of how she used to be. Mitsuba remembers when one of her teammates died because she broke formation. Though Shina tries to free her from her guilt, she remains angry. Later, the rescued girl tells them the vampires are at Omotesando Station, so the next day, they head there to rescue the humans. On the way, Mitsuba says not to worry about the civilians, and if the vampires are armed, they must flee. Yuichiro doesn't like this because he wants to kill vampires. When they reach the station gates, Shina tells them she hopes they can complete the mission without any casualties, so they must not act recklessly. Leader Shina begins explaining the plan. Inside the station, there are 7 vampires who hopefully will be asleep. However, they must stay together, protect each other, and not break formation. Upon entering, they encounter humans dressed as livestock, which triggers memories of Yuichiro's past. Mitsuba takes the lead and tells them they need to head to floor S3, where the vampires are located. As they walk, Shina finds it strange that the humans don't try to escape when there are no vampires around. Mitsuba explains they stay there for protection because the outside is crawling with monsters. At that moment, the first vampire appears. Mitsuba orders them to ready their weapons, but Yuichiro rushes forward, attacks the vampire, pierces him with his sword, and defeats him. Mitsuba scolds Yuichiro, but he argues that it wasn't reckless because he waited for all the orders and took the opportunity to attack an unarmed enemy. Plus, he saved Mitsuba from a surprise attack from behind. Yuichiro gets excited about fighting vampires and charges at them as his enemy mocks him. However, he defeats him in a single strike before he can even finish speaking. Mitsuba is surprised by Yuichiro's strength, and Shinya comments that he is still weaker than him. That's why Yuichiro suggests they fight one-on-one right then. But Mitsuba orders them to stop fooling around. They continue through the station but are ambushed by their enemies, since there are more than 5 remaining vampires. Mitsuba is the first to be captured, and realizes they used the girl as bait to give them false information. She orders her teammates to retreat, but Yuichiro refuses to leave her behind and tries to rescue her. As he moves toward her, the rest of the team fights the vampires. Yuichiro reaches Mitsuba and saves her, cutting the vampire holding her hostage in half. Then Yuichiro tells the vampires that if they thought humans were disgusting, they should wait and see how humans willing to do anything to protect their loved ones can defeat them. In the center of the battle formation, surrounded by vampires, the kids agree they can defeat them all. However, they wait for Mitsuba's order to attack. Eventually, they manage to rescue everyone. At the rescue camp, the girl approaches Yuichiro to apologize for what she did earlier, crying as she does so. Yuichiro reassures her, telling her she just wanted to protect her family and friends, and that she did the right thing. As Mitsuba observes this scene, Shina teases her, implying she has fallen for Yuichiro after being rescued. Mitsuba responds that she doesn't understand why Yuichiro acts that way. Shina tells her it's because Yuichiro was once a prisoner as a child. Mitsuba then approaches Yuichiro to confront him about his past, but he tells her not to pry into it. Even so, she tells him that from her perspective, he did nothing wrong. Yuichiro, visibly sad, says, "Maybe so, but he left his family behind to save himself, and that will never change." Before leaving, Mitsuba tries to thank Yuichiro for what he did but cannot manage to, and storms off in frustration. From above, a woman watches them all. The next day, Yuichiro is excited to see that Shinya knows how to start an abandoned car, so he asks to drive it for a bit. Shinya tells him he doesn't know how to drive, but Yuichiro insists it will only be for a short time. However, Shinya refuses, saying he will teach him later. Then the kids gather for lunch. Shinya tells them he managed to start the car, but Yuichiro ignores what Shinya is saying and steals the car, nearly running him over after crashing it. Yuichiro tells Shinya to get in the car and claims he'll drive them to Shinjuku, infuriating Shinya. While the others watch from afar, Shinya tells them to get into the Shinoa Mobile to head towards Shinjuku. Although everyone wanted to drive, after some teasing about Shinoa's height, Shinya ends up driving. As they move forward, they hear noises and assume they are horsemen of the apocalypse, so they shouldn't worry. However, Mitsuba informs them that the noises are coming from the city, and Shinoa orders them to stay alert. When they turn a corner, they arrive at Shinjuku's walls and see the city is destroyed. Right in front of them, they see a noble vampire approaching, and Yuichiro orders them not to stop the car but to run him over. However, the vampire stops the car with one hand and draws his sword to defend against their attacks. Shinoa worries about his power and warns the kids to be careful because he wields a high-ranking weapon. At that moment, the vampire seizes the chance to attack Shinoa, but Yuichiro saves her just in time. Shinoa thinks that to defeat him, they'll need Yuichiro and Shinoa to face him one-on-one while the others provide support. However, 2 more vampires appear as backup, so Yuichiro suggests retreating. Shinoa tells him that's not possible, so they must use all their demonic power to fight even if it might kill them. Yuichiro smiles and promises he won't let anyone die, for he has Asuramaru's power. Then one of the support vampires asks Lord Crowley what he's doing there, and informs him that Ferret is requesting him at the front lines. To avoid keeping him waiting, Crowley tells the kids he will let them go. Shinoa sighs in relief when he leaves, but Yuichiro is filled with rage at the vast difference in power between them. Shinoa tells him that if he learns some spells, that gap will narrow. Yuichiro demands she teach him, but she refuses because it would mean only he would be fighting vampires head-on while the others would die. Instead, she urges them to work as a team, though she's glad Yuichiro at least suggested a retreat. We then move to Shinjuku's defenses, where the army struggles to hold off helicopters full of vampires. Managing to shoot down a few helicopters, they receive orders to hold out for the 4th wave and to resist as long as possible. Otherwise, Shinjuku will fall. But then they see a plane heading straight toward them, unaware it's loaded with explosives. This allows the vampires to breach the city walls. We then see the kids arriving in the city, witnessing all the chaos inside since the west wall has fallen. Suddenly, 2 helicopters appear and attack their position with missiles, but they manage to take cover in time. When Yoichi sees that the helicopters are shot down with arrows, he asks if the rest of the army also carries cursed weapons. The girls explain that those are rune weapons, similar to cursed weapons, but simplified. Yoichiro then notices another helicopter heading straight toward them to attack again, but once more they manage to take cover. From that same helicopter, hundreds of vampires descend, so they join the army to fight back. After a fierce battle in which the kids work as a team, they manage to defeat all the vampires. Corporal Nagai thanks them for their help and is relieved to learn they are part of the Moon Demon Company. As the kids observe the situation and conclude it's worse than reported, the corporal informs them that vampires have breached the west wall, so he needs their help to fight them back. Yuichiro responds that's exactly why they came, and the corporal begins transporting them to the western combat zone. From the top of a building, Guren sees that things aren't going well, and wants to know who is in command, spotting Mika alongside Farid, who detects Guren from far away. But Shigiri tells him to stop wasting time. Guren replies he's doing it to secure observation points, since the vampires will likely send someone to do the same. At that moment, a vampire tries to attack Shigiri from behind, but Mito arrives just in time and kills the vampire, followed by the arrival of Guren's entire squad. Guren asks Shigiri how Yuichiro and the others are doing. She informs him they've already arrived in the city. Guren tells his group they need to defeat the enemy commander so the battle can turn in their favor. Meanwhile, Farid asks Mika if seeing Tokyo again makes him nostalgic. He then asks if Mika isn't thirsty, suggesting he should take advantage of the battlefield to drink blood. Farid reminds him of what happened to his family, and Mika becomes angry with himself for not being able to protect them. We then go back 4 years where Cruel forces Mika to drink blood to gain power and eternal youth, but he refuses, preferring to die rather than become a vampire. Cruel tells him it's too late for that. If he dies now, he'll just become a stupid demon. Mika continues refusing, so Cruel offers him her own blood, which he rejects at first, but he can't resist for long and starts drinking her blood. Cruel is pleased, saying Mika will now be her pet for all eternity. Back in the present, Mika carries Cruel's blood, which will only last him 10 days, so he must find Yuichiro before it runs out. As it begins to rain, Nagai informs the kids they will arrive at the defensive line in 15 minutes. Shina then tells the kids they'll begin their first training lesson since, according to Mitsuba, in their current state, they'll be useless on the front lines. They need to take pills provided by the army to enhance their power and demon synchronization, boosting their strength by 1.5 times with 1 pill or 1.8 times with 2. Yuichiro gets excited, thinking if he takes many, he'll become super strong, but Shina warns that taking more than 3 will liquefy his internal organs. The girls add that the effect only lasts 15 minutes and takes 10 seconds to kick in, leaving them vulnerable afterward. Yuichiro asks if that means he'll be able to use the full power of his cursed weapon, but Shina answers no. That requires studying and practice, but there's no time for that now. Before they arrive at their destination, they are attacked, and Yuichiro sees the corporal injured, so he rushes to save him. The kids work together to perform the rescue. Yet, the helicopter fires missiles that cause Yuichiro, Shina, and the corporal to fall into a subway tunnel. As they come up with a plan to help the corporal, they hear Shina's voice from the other side of the rubble, telling them they also fell into the tunnel but have a way out. Yuichiro orders them to head for the exit while he and Shina search for their own. On the surface, Guren prepares to face Mika. Ferret approaches Mika, lamenting the casualties caused by Guren's attack. He comments that humans are using their best fighters, pointing out that Guren belongs to the vampire killing force, the Moon Demon Company. He orders his subordinates to attack the army led by Guren. Meanwhile, Guren unleashes the power of his Mahiru no Yo sword and tells his troops to have enjoyed their last meal, motivating them by saying if they win this battle, they will win the war. We then see a flashback of Yuichiro, where he and Mika are reading together. Mika asks what Yuichiro would do if they could escape the city, but Yuichiro replies that the outside world is dead. However, Mika tells him to imagine a situation where they could escape and live outside without the virus. Yuichiro thinks it would be great, and Mika tells him he needs to work harder before leaving. Even though Yuichiro doesn't understand what he means, in the present he realizes he was wrong since the outside world is no paradise. Shinor approaches Yuichiro to inform him that the corporal is safe and that Guren has sent new orders. Guren is fighting the main vampire force at the intersection of Shinjuku's 5th Street West and is requesting they join him. Yuichiro says that if they defeat the vampires, they'll win the battle. Shinora replies that maybe the vampires think the same way and believe defeating the lieutenant colonel would already be a victory. Therefore, she suggests hurrying to regroup with the others at the defensive lines. On the way, they hear injured soldiers expressing doubts about the extermination force and asking for help, since they're just kids and are expected to be defeated soon. Yuichiro approaches and asks where they are so he can go help his friends. The soldier informs him they are at Shinjuku Central Park. Yuichiro tells Shinor that he and she will take care of that, and that the platoon should head to the defense line. Shinor tries to stop Yuichiro, arguing they shouldn't act based on assumptions about where their friends might be, and their priority should be reinforcing Guren since they are the only ones who can help him. Yuichiro ignores her and keeps walking towards Central Park. At the defense line, Guren and his comrades fight against countless vampires. Guren complains about the endless waves of enemies. Shigeru suggests that she and Mito cover him so he can attack the vampire commander. Meanwhile, Farad comments that everything would be more interesting if Crowley had arrived on time, ordering Lacus and Renee to distract everyone except Guren. He tells Mika it's time to show his power as they prepare to attack Guren together. However, Mika says he will handle the arrogant human who attacked him with his sword by himself. Back with Yuichiro, Shina decides to accompany him, and he thanks her. When they arrive at Central Park, they see their comrades defeating vampires, but they're already exhausted. Shina, after saving Yoichi, comments he didn't think fighting without Yuichiro and Shina would be so difficult. While they're still fighting, a vampire attacks Shina from behind, but Yuichiro arrives just in time to save him. Yuichiro asks where the remaining enemies are, but is disappointed to hear he just killed the last one. Shina approaches Yuichiro and scolds him for not following the plan to regroup at the defensive lines, telling him he needs to trust him and his comrades more. Yuichiro apologizes, but says that if they face the same situation tomorrow, he would come again because it's not just about trust, it's about doing what needs to be done every time. This causes his comrades to tease him for being so stubborn. Finally, the whole group heads toward the defensive lines. In the battle, the situation remains balanced while Guren fights Mika. Both are very strong and cannot gain an advantage over the other. Guren tries to place an explosive on Mika's forehead, but he dodges it, as Guren's ancient spell explosives are too slow and ineffective against vampires. Farad appears to praise Mika and warns him to stop being so arrogant or he'll die, offering his help, but Mika refuses, claiming he won't lose. However, Mika doesn't notice he's standing over a trap prepared by Shigure. Guren then orders his team to begin a coordinated attack. Shigure and Goshi strike, but their attacks miss. When Guren is about to kill Mika, Farad saves him at the last moment, telling him he now owes him one. Guren is thrown back by Farad's strike and complains about his overwhelming power. Farad suggests teaming up with Mika, but Mika refuses, saying he now knows his enemy's moves. Mika readies his sword and prepares to attack, so Guren decides to take a second power pill despite his companions warning him it could kill him. Guren asks Mika as a gentleman to give him 20 seconds to take the medicine. However, Mika attacks him directly and warns that he will stop holding back, threatening to kill him, but they aren't fast enough, and Mika stabs Guren with his sword. This enrages Yuichiro, who cannot see the face of the one who injured Guren, and he stabs Mika, shocking both Mika and Yuichiro. As they finally come face to face, none of the kids can believe what's happening. Gurren yells at Yuichiro to activate his sword and finish Mika off. When Yuichiro doesn't do it, Gurren gets up and tries to do it himself, but fails. Wounded, Gurren uses what little strength he has left to punch Yuichiro for not acting. Yuichiro still doesn't understand what's going on and is in shock. Gurren warns him not to let his guard down, while the others ask why he didn't kill the enemy. Yuichiro confesses that it was Mika, someone from his family, and proceeds to confirm whether he's really his brother. The kids are emotional at their reunion. Even though they are on opposite sides, Farid mocks them, teasing Mika, who finally got the reunion he longed for, and asks him what he's going to do now. Under Farid's influence, Mika says he will save Yuichiro from the greedy humans using him. However, Farid says that if Yuichiro remains human, they cannot coexist, and suggests Cruel should also turn him. Mika strongly opposes and threatens to kill Farid if he gets near Yuichiro. Farid accepts but offers to help by distracting the rest of the humans. Meanwhile, Mika looks at Yuichiro, lamenting that his human friends are only using him for their own benefit because of his goodwill. Finally, Farid orders the battle to begin, telling them to kill everyone except Yuichiro. At that moment, Crowley joins the fight. Farid then proposes not killing them, but capturing them as livestock for feeding in an operation called domestication. Seeing another noble has arrived, Gurren orders all troops to retreat. However, Yuichiro refuses to leave and abandon his family there. Gurren asks if he wants everyone to stay and die. Yuichiro understands, and they begin the retreat, planning to keep their formation until they reach the second defensive line. But Farid intercepts them, causing Yuichiro to go into a rage and attack uncontrollably. Gurren tries to save him, but gets injured again. Mito tries to escape to help Gurren, but is stopped by a vampire. Mito suggests killing everyone, but Gashi says it won't be that easy. While the kids keep fighting vampires, Yoichi spots his sister's killer. Crowley happily interrupts, promising not to let them escape. Farid is about to defeat Gurren, but Yuichiro runs to his aid. Farid dodges and positions himself behind Yuichiro, threatening to taste his blood, only to have his arm cut off by Mika. Mika suggests to Yuichiro that they leave everyone behind and run away together, but Yuichiro refuses and scolds him for being with Farid. Mika picks Yuichiro up and carries him away, infuriating Yuichiro. When Yuichiro breaks free from his arms, he confronts him about why he says humans are using him. Yuichiro then realizes Mika is no longer human, and blames himself, but Mika tells him it's not his fault and begs him to go with him. Yuichiro refuses because he doesn't want to abandon his friends, and then sees Shinar about to be defeated. Yuichiro wants to help her, but Mika stops him, saying those people don't matter anymore. But Yuichiro keeps watching his friends getting bitten by vampires, which drives him into despair. Even as his friends beg him to escape, Yuichiro enters a trance where he encounters Asuramaru. He asks if Asuramaru is trying to take control of his body, but she says she isn't doing anything and is simply scared of him. She tells him to follow Mika's advice because the humans did something to him. Then from the sky, trumpets sound and angels appear, signifying that Yuichiro has lost his humanity and unleashed the monster within. A massive amount of demonic power bursts out from Yuichiro, giving him immense strength. Every strike he lands causes bloodshed and destroys everything around. With this power, he is on par with Crowley, and even corners him while Mika tries to stop him. Crowley turns to Farid, who questions Gurren about the new power and sarcastically confirms it's an experiment. Yuichiro then goes to kill Shinnok, as he has no control over his body. Gurren tells Shinnok to find a way to bring him back. Just as Yuichiro is about to kill Shinnok, Mika steps in and takes the sword strike instead, but Yuichiro doesn't seem to react and continues his mission to kill everyone. Meanwhile, Gurren orders Shinnok to do something or they will all die. So Shinnok throws herself on Yuichiro and hugs him, begging him to stop. Suddenly Yuichiro seems to regain consciousness and finally faints. Gurren laughs at Farid, saying that was his trump card, but Farid replies, "It's a shame it didn't accomplish anything." Gurren answers that they just needed to buy time for Shino Haragi to position himself and for the entire Haragi army to arrive so they could take control of the situation. We now see Shina descending some stairs, remembering how at the end of the battle, she wanted to ask Gurren about what had happened. However, he told her he wasn't interested in what she wanted to ask and that she shouldn't try to dig into anything. Shina finally arrives at a restricted area, stating that she is a member of the vampire extermination forces of the army. Even so, the guard denies her entry because only those ranked higher than commander are allowed in. Shina asks what this place is, and while one guard was about to say it's a secret, the other reveals it is a laboratory for experimenting on vampires to find their weaknesses. Shina insists on entering, and when they still won't allow her, she shows her family's identification symbol, which grants her access. Crossing the door, she finds a high-tech laboratory and realizes that Gurren is running it, someone she hasn't seen for 5 days. She confronts him, asking if he thinks what he did to Yuichiro was right, since Yuichiro still hasn't woken up. She also questions his plans for Yuichiro, given that he gave him different pills based on his recommendations. Shina believes those pills made Yuichiro lose control, but Gurren begins asking existential questions about what humanity must do to survive, and wonders what would have happened if his sister Mahiru Hiragi hadn't invented the demon weapons. Finally, Gurren tells her not to come to him with her idealistic complaints and mocks her for being in love with Yuichiro, telling her to go home because he isn't a love counselor. Before she leaves, Gurren informs her the effect of the pills will wear off in 5 days, so she should stop by to visit Yuichiro. That's why Shina visits Yuichiro in the infirmary, waiting for him to wake up while also questioning if she's truly in love. We then move to a memory of Mika, who still wants to rescue Yuichiro. However, Farid stops him, saying it's impossible because the humans have him trapped in lies. Farid keeps questioning Mika about what he really is, since he hates both humans and vampires. Mika tries to hit Farid again, but Farid blocks him, telling him he's had enough fun, and the two end up fleeing. Next we see Mika emerging from a detox capsule, thinking it's the first time he has cried since becoming a vampire. Meanwhile, in the locker room, other vampires complain that even though they fought humans, those humans put up a tough fight. Mika ignores them, but overhears that the High Council is worried because humans are conducting forbidden research that could destroy the world. They mention the Seraph of the End experiment, which they apparently were supposed to retrieve from Shinjuku. This is where our video comes to an end. Subscribe for more anime recaps.